What you're about to witness is one of the greatest epics ever produced in the history of television. And there's more, because you are going to see it as well.
Yes, it.
Yes, it.
Yes.
And afterwards, that is directly following, I want to talk to you about something even bigger, namely... And you know what security guards are like. Shoot, shoot, shoot first, then still argue about whether you can come in. You see, I'm not one to beat about the large black boots, but...
Sit back.
Relax. And enjoy.
Well, hello, and welcome to Unconventional. This is episode 2, which is, of course, following episode 1, which took place 2 weeks ago, which covered the basics, such as Libertarian Party structure at all levels, what is membership, what are bylaws or constitutions, what is a delegate, what happens at convention, a brief summary, obviously, and what is parliamentary procedure. This show airs every Tuesday night at 7 Mountain on LPTV, unless something urgent interrupts my schedule, as it did tonight. Much apologies, but the life of an LNC secretary is very, very busy. And once again, mentioning my role, I am Karen Ann Harlos. I am the current and immediately preceding Secretary of the Libertarian National Committee and the National Party. As such, I have the honor of being National Convention Secretary, and as such, I have obtained, both by being a delegate myself and my time on the Libertarian National Committee, a wealth of information. And my passion is teaching other libertarians and teaching them, very importantly, to be great National Convention delegates. As I said in episode 1, I remember what it was like to be new, and I felt really stupid. I had never been involved in politics before, certainly not at a level where I'd be considering being a delegate at a national convention. But as I told you last time, rest assured, you are not stupid. There's a lot of information out there, and this is not common knowledge. So are you ready to move beyond the basics? Remember from last time that the entity that determines who is and who is not a delegate is your state party. Your state party operates under a set of rules that are called bylaws, constitution, and special rules of order. These rules exist in a hierarchy as follows. Constitution is the highest authority. Under that is the bylaws, and under that is special rules of order. Special rules of order are beyond the scope of this episode and are the lowest in authority of all of these types of rules, and thus they can and do change often. As you get involved in and interact with your state party, you can ask to be kept up to date with such day-to-day rules, how they might impact your becoming a delegate, which should be very little. Now, the rules that are difficult to change, such as constitution and bylaws, these typically can only be changed by a vote of the delegates at your state convention, which is usually every year, though some have it every other year. Though there are a few states, wrongly in my view of member rights, allow constitutions and bylaws to be changed by the state party governing board. But more typically, they'll change at most yearly, and many of these stay the same for multiple years as the delegates find no reason to change them. Now, your state will have bylaws, or as in a few states, they may simply be called rules or something similar. New York is such an example. And your state will potentially have a constitution, which is an artifact of older parliamentary practice and is being phased out. For example, last convention, Colorado just merged its constitution and bylaws into one document called bylaws, and I highly recommend this. If you are part of leadership or on an amendment committee for your state party and are interested in my thoughts on merging the two documents and why I recommend it, and perhaps some tips on how you might smoothly do that and avoid some very real dangers and pitfalls, please get in touch with me about this. So in order to get to the bylaws, which you're going to need to find in order to become a delegate in your state, we're going to use a few states as an example. For instance, Colorado, which in my very biased opinion has the bigliest, most awesomest bylaws of all of the affiliates, and New Hampshire, because obvious, at least at the time of this recording, New Hampshire is very, very near and dear to me. So in my demonstration, I'm going to even keep in all of my mistakes to give you an idea of how your search may go. And I'm going to give you several paths to do this. So in our example, you live in the state of Colorado and want to be a delegate. So how do you find out how? First, you need to find their bylaws. And how do you do that? Well, the absolute best place to go is their website. So let's go to Comrade Google and ask for their website. All right, here is Google, and mistakes and all, here we go. So let's just look up Libertarian Party of Colorado. And one of the first things that come up should be the website. There we go, lpcolorado.org. Okay, once you're here, okay, now what? A lot of these LP websites, since a lot of them are managed by one particular set of templates of WordPress and on the main database of the National Party, a lot of them are organized very similar. In fact, I would say most of them. So sometimes you will find it up here, like under Information or Libertarian Parties. You can see the platform is here. It's not under Get Involved. When it's not at the top, you'll usually find the bylaws or constitution in a footer at the bottom. So you see here, party organization bylaws. One thing you could also do if we went up to the top here, though this will not work if it's in a drop down, you can always do a search and see if bylaws come up. As you can see, there it is right there. So let's go to the bylaws. And you're going to be using the search function quite a bit. And for some reason, the Colorado site, probably the main server at National that I referred to, is very slow today. Here we go. And Colorado actually puts its bylaws up on Lpedia. Lpedia is something we will discuss later. Most sites or most states will take you right to their current bylaws. But here we'll just go down the list to go to the ones adopted 2021. We're going to look at it in PDF because that's, rather than on the Lpedia format, because that's how most states will have it, either as a PDF or as a web page. So here's the PDF. We double check. It was adopted 2021. If you're looking at your state party, or another way I'm going to tell you how to find bylaws, if they're this year, then you know for sure they're the most current because they can only be modified for the majority of the time speaking once a year. And it says adopted in convention. You should get a little familiar with bylaws because in order to be an effective Libertarian Party member, you need to understand them. And perhaps we'll do another series on things like that. But generally, they're going to have things like, what's the name of the party? What's the purposes? How is membership defined? I'm skipping some of these titles that aren't common, that just happen to be in Colorado. How are county affiliates defined? How is the governing board elected? How is it composed? What are their duties? Some committees will sometimes be specified. How does these boards and committees, or how do these boards and committees meet? Now, conventions. That's what we're going to be very interested in. So we have the annual conventions, which is the state party convention. They have special conventions for emergencies. Then it talks about how candidates are nominated. Here, it's the title we're looking for, but we're going to go through the rest. It says National Convention Delegates and Alternates. And then it has some other committees. National Committee representatives and alternates, finances, parliamentary authority, amendments, which say how these bylaws can be amended, severability, and then there's some references at the end. Okay, what we're going to want to go to is National Convention delegates and alternates. I realized I never talked about alternates, so I want to take that opportunity here before we move on. Your state, and we'll get into this more after we talk about the bylaws, but it will be this episode, but your state gets a certain number of delegates, but they also get like spares, spare delegates in case any of the primary delegates either have to leave the floor or they don't show up. And there are alternates who get substituted in as spaces arise. Just wanted to get that definition out there. Let's go back to these bylaws. Now, let's say the bylaws you're looking at aren't quite organized this, clearly, because I said Colorado has the bestest bylaws. You could go, whoops, sorry, I was moving my screen around on my end. Oh, derp, because I'm hitting my recording screen instead of the actual laptop screen to move things around. Derpity, derpity, derp. Okay, so what you could do if you couldn't find it just by scrolling, and you're probably going to want to do this anyway to make sure you found everywhere delegates are mentioned, you can do a search for the word delegates. And you can see here, first comes up, it's talking about election of Colorado directors. That's not what we want to talk about. That's talking about state convention delegates. And it continues on that. As you can see, there's 35 mentions. The Judicial Committee is elected by delegates. Talks about requirements for meetings to elect delegates. Now, this could be interesting. It says any meeting to elect party directors or national convention delegates or any assembly to nominate candidates shall be held at a public place at the time specified by the chair. Okay, this is at conventions, but it's letting you know this is never done in secret. So that's good to know. Okay, annual convention. This is talking about the state party convention, and it says it holds one of party delegates. Those are state delegates each year. It's continuing with that. It's talking about how candidates are nominated. More about candidates. All right, and then it got us to here. So there's multiple ways to find it in your particular bylaws. So let's see how long this section is. Okay, it's quite a bit, but let's go over it because this is pretty thorough. So, Section 4, subsection A. All National Convention delegates must have been members or have been pre-registered. We have pre-registration in Colorado to become members for at least 90 days. Now, we actually have to go back to earlier in the bylaws because we don't know what a member is. And right now, the first thing we see is in order to be a national delegate in Colorado, you have to be a member. Now, we could do that same search, but I remember when we went through, and this is pretty typical, towards the beginning, it talked about members. Now, I'm not going to read this in its entirety. I'm going to summarize it for you. But basically, in Colorado, all that's required to be a member of the Libertarian Party of Colorado, and if you see me looking down, it's because I do have my laptop here where I'm reading these bylaws, is a registered Libertarian. We do have partisan registration in Colorado. Your state may have that as well. It may require partisan registration, and it might require dues, or either or. We do not have dues in Colorado. All is required is to be a registered Libertarian. Okay, so now we can go back to that section now that we know what a member is. Okay, so all National Convention delegates must have been members. We can substitute in there so that we know must have been registered libertarians or have been pre-registered. We have partisan pre-registration for young people to become members for at least 90 days immediately prior to the first day of the election in which they are elected. This is called a seasoning period. It's so that people can't just walk in off the street and be a convention delegate, a national convention delegate. We also have the same requirements to be a voting delegate at the state convention. The purpose of seasoning requirements where they exist is to protect the party from hostile takeovers. This has happened in our party history, particularly from nominally Republican actors, bad actors. Not always. There was an incident with Howard Stern where when he was running for governor in New York, and actually it was that incident that caused Colorado to put in seasoning requirements. We didn't used to have a seasoning requirement to be a national convention delegate. And then 1 year, and of course this is somewhat our fault, or our meaning the delegates at that convention, for not properly vetting or asking the proper questions. But we had someone who had registered to be a libertarian only, I think, 6 days before they were nominated to be a delegate. And then immediately after the convention, when the presidential candidate they supported didn't win, they switched to the Constitution Party. So not someone with deep roots or loyalty whatsoever to the Libertarian Party. And being a delegate is a position of honor and trust. And it should be committed libertarians that are there. So we now put in, at my urging, this seasoning requirement for national convention delegates. So make sure then, if you want to be a delegate in Colorado or whatever state you're looking at, look at their seasoning requirement. Make sure you meet the membership requirements prior to those deadlines. So you'll need to pay attention to when the first day of the convention is, if you're in Colorado, and make sure you're registered at least 90 days before. Why don't you just register now? Just go for it. You'll love it. We have cookies. Okay, and this, I believe, is unique to Colorado, must sign a statement to the effect that they support the statement of principles of the National Libertarian Party. This is somewhat of an ideological commitment that they are actual solid libertarians that support the basic principles of the party, wherever else they may disagree. I encourage all states to have this, but as far as I know, this is unique to Colorado. Okay, B, it says that the board shall solicit applications at least 60 days prior to the convention, but an application is not required for nomination. We have applications so that interested delegates can vet people and perhaps speak to them, or at least see the names and perhaps know to raise objections of people who are wishing to become delegates. But they can still be nominated from the floor, and delegates can take into consideration that they didn't apply and assign whatever weight to that they wish. Then it says, the party chair shall announce the number of national convention delegates to be elected. We're going to get into that next, but each state is assigned a certain number of delegates. And then D, nominations for national convention delegates. And it's going on next is to say how they're elected at convention. That's really beyond well, no, let's get into it, okay? So it doesn't say they have to be present at the convention to be nominated, but I can tell you it will harm you if you're not present, even if it's not required. So let's just go over this briefly, though. How they're elected in Colorado. Each state is different. Nominations for national convention delegates shall be received from the floor with no seconding required. Generally, seconds aren't required for any kind of nomination. That language is somewhat superfluous there. Members may nominate themselves. Each state convention delegate in attendance at the state convention, so now it's talking about state convention delegates, the ones who are allowed to vote at the state convention, shall cast a single vote for each national convention delegate of their choice by submitting a signed ballot prepared by the board for this purpose. The total votes cast by each state convention delegate shall not exceed the number of national convention delegates to be selected. So let's just pick a number out of the air, which is close to what Colorado gets. Let's say Colorado was allotted 30 delegates. It means out of the list, and usually these days there will be more than 30 people, they could vote for up to 30 people, saying, I approve these 30, but no more. They could also obviously vote for less or none. National convention delegates shall be elected by a simple majority of the state convention delegates voting. I am going to recommend to the next bylaws committee that we delete the word simple. It's not necessary, and that could cause an ambiguity, because in bylaws interpretation, it is assumed that every word is there for a reason, and perhaps the reason is we didn't mean majority as normally defined. Is a simple majority a plurality? That could be argued. So anywhere in your bylaws you see simple majority, that really should be amended at convention. Subsequent ballots shall be taken as necessary to fill any remaining National Convention delegate slots. That means if we didn't get 30 people who got a majority. In the event that there are more candidates receiving a majority vote than there are National Convention delegate slots to be filled, those candidates receiving the highest vote totals shall be elected. No elections by slate shall be permitted. That means you can't say these 30, we're just going to vote for them all with one vote. You have to follow this procedure. After the National Convention delegates are elected, National Convention alternates shall be selected by using the same procedure as used for selecting National Convention delegates. Okay, that's simple enough. The chair, that means the state party chair, shall serve as delegation chair or may request that the National Convention delegates select a delegation chair. Substitutions shall only be made from the list of National Convention alternates selected by the state convention delegates. So that is, if somebody doesn't show up, someone needs to leave the floor either for the rest of the convention or temporarily. The substitutions have to be made from the approved list of alternates or anyone afterwards added by a majority vote of the present board. So between our state convention and national convention, the state board by majority vote can add additional alternates. But there's a caveat. Provided said National Convention alternates did not receive less than a majority vote by the last state convention. So this is preventing the board from putting someone in that the convention disapproved. Substitution and selection of additional National Convention delegates may be made at the National Convention by a majority of the attending National Convention delegates, provided that such substitutes or additions would have been qualified to be elected at the state convention, meaning they were Libertarians 90 days prior to the first day of the state convention, and did not receive less than a majority vote at the last state convention, so they weren't disapproved, and have signed a statement to the effect that they support the statement of principles of the Libertarian Party. So they have to sign the same things. And we do this by an electronic signature. And here's something else that I believe is unique to Colorado. We very much believe in transparency in Colorado, and we firmly believe that the delegates are there not to represent themselves, though they certainly will be using a lot of their own independent judgment, but they're there to represent the entire membership of Colorado. And as such, we have this requirement. For each vote, all National Convention delegates will sign their physical ballot, when there is a physical ballot, or submit to the delegation chair an accurate list of their electronic ballots. These results will be compiled by the delegation chair in a post-National Convention report. Upon request, within 30 days of the National Convention delegates, as they are able, shall also report how they voted on particular bylaws, convention rules, and platform changes. We need to put in their resolutions. It's not in there. The reason for this is those are usually voice votes. So as they can remember, as they are able, they're also to report on these. This is so that these convention delegates are accountable for their votes to the general membership of Colorado. And if they voted in a way that the membership didn't approve of, then that's a factor to whether they would ever be elected to be a national convention delegate again. They are not bound in any way. Our national convention our national bylaws prohibit unit voting. There's a lot of interpretations of what that means, but it has been generally interpreted by some states to mean you can't send bound delegates. And a bound delegate is someone who has promised to vote a certain way. Now, some states haven't interpreted that way, but I can just tell you in Colorado, that's the way it is. We do not send bound delegates. So for Colorado, that's how you become a delegate. Now, hopefully that was clear, but if it wasn't, you know, any kind of questions you have, remember, if you ask them while this is live, I try to be available in the live chat to answer questions. But otherwise, again, you can always email me at secretary@lp.org. Also, I'm not going to say my phone number on the actual YouTube video, but it is in my signature line on the any email I send you. You are free to call me as well. All right, let's check out New Hampshire. Now, in doing this, I am not familiar at all with how they do their delegates. So we're going to do like we did before, google.com. Comrade Google. Let's do the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. Okay. It's the first thing. Let's find where their bylaws are. Who we are. No, platform. This looks very similar to Colorado. So it's probably in the footer. Aha. I do not see it. Where are you? Okay, this might be a good example. Get involved. Oh, bylaws and minutes. Derpity derp. There it is. Okay. Okay, governing documents. The platform. And look, they have the previous ones listed as well, but what we want is the current. All right, and it pulled up a PDF. Let's just go through it and look at the titles. So name, duration, principles and purpose, structure, membership. We might need to go back to membership. Well, actually, let's take they got multiple levels. So we're going to go back to this after we look at what's required for delegates. A lot of state parties do have multiple levels. I do not know. I believe they have partisan registration in New Hampshire, but I'm not sure. Now that I'm curious, let me see if Dr. Google or Comrade Google can let me know. Is there partisan voter registration in New Hampshire? It looks like it. Yep, there is. Okay, not sure yet if it's required, but let's see. Officers, Executive Committee and Leadership Board. I would like to find a state that has both a constitution and bylaws for us to look at as well. And we'll do that in a moment. General Court. That's the name of the bodies of delegates in convention. Interesting. Never saw that kind of thing before. So these are state party conventions. Standing committees. Now sometimes the bylaws will not say, but we're going to deal with all of that. These are all committees. Wow. Okay. Special committees, affiliates, Libertarian National Convention. Okay, that's probably it. But we will go back to that. Parliamentary authority, amendments, and that's it. So let's look at what it says under Libertarian National Convention. No person shall be seated with the state party delegation to a national convention who is not a dues-paying member of the state party. Okay, so you need to be a dues-paying member. We will go back to that. If the chair is unavailable to serve as delegation chair, the vice chair shall be chair of the delegation. If both the chair and vice chair are unavailable to serve, the delegation shall select its own chair. The general court, which is their state convention, as we saw earlier, shall elect the delegates to the national convention in accordance with the convention rules adopted by the state party. So the only requirement here is that they be a dues-paying member, and the way they are selected is according to the convention rules. We'll see on their website if the convention rules are published, but that lets you know it is at their state convention since it's governed by convention rules. Okay, so let's go back to membership. Okay, everyone must sign the NAP pledge. Basic members don't pay dues, so they could not be a delegate. A general member has signed the pledge and paid dues. A young adult member signed the pledge and paid dues. Sustaining member, also dues, probably at a higher level, and a life member. So everyone is qualified to become a national delegate except for a basic member who has not paid dues. I do not see here that they require you to be a registered libertarian. But let's do some searches. Let's look up registered. Okay. Officers are required to be registered as a libertarian. Okay. All right. To be a delegate. Now, this is unclear to me. To become a delegate to a convention. But it looks like to a convention is struck out. So to become a delegate shall be a dues-paying member in good standing for at least the immediately preceding 35 days, be a New Hampshire resident, and be registered as a libertarian. Now, I find this bylaw somewhat unclear. It looks like, okay, it's under the section for their state convention. So this is for their state convention, not national. Okay, the Judicial Committee, you have to be a registered libertarian. Okay, that's it. So it doesn't appear to me, though if you're in New Hampshire, you will want to clarify this with the state board, that you need to be a registered libertarian to be a national party delegate. I mean, a national convention delegate, which is really strange to me since they require it to be a state delegate. But let's go and check this again. Sometimes other people reading your bylaws can show holes that you never saw, but perhaps this is how they'd like it. Yep, the only requirement is that they have to be a dues-paying member. Okay. Now, if you had questions, say you were in New Hampshire, and I've said you've got to ask the board, usually, if you go up here, you can find their leadership, and there's usually contact information. But it doesn't look like there is. That is interesting. Oh, contact us to learn more. Okay, it's down here. And they have a form, you can do it. Okay, so now that we've gone through those, I said I'd like to look at one that has a constitution and the bylaws. And I also said that I would find another way for you to find the bylaws. Like say on that New Hampshire site, if we couldn't find their bylaws. So this involves going to a site called Lpedia. If you're not familiar with Lpedia, you should be. It is the wiki of the Libertarian Party. So think of it as Wikipedia, but like Wikipedia, same software, but it's all LP, only LP. And it's got some fantastic historical information in there. So we are going to go to Lpedia. So let's go back to Dr. Google. And we're going to go to Lpedia, and it's .org, not .com. If you go to .com, it's a lost wiki, you know, from that show. I wonder if it still is. considering it's been a while. But okay, so this is lpedia.org, typical wiki. But what we're going to look for, there is an index that the National Secretary, who's right now me, keeps on Lpedia of all of the, I need to plug in my computer here. Otherwise, we would have maybe lost signal. Of all of the current bylaws, at least as far as the National Secretary's been informed of, which sometimes isn't always up to date, of every state. So let's look up, and we're just gonna, because I'm guessing at what it's titled, because I always forget, and this will help you. Secretary Archive. And let's see if we can find it. Here we go. LNC Secretary Bylaws and Constitution Archive 2020 through 2022 LNC term. And my little camera. Okay, I wanted to make sure I was on the screen. Hi. Okay, let's go back to that. And as you can see, I have all of the states and their current bylaws, current constitution, and if there's none, it says none, like Colorado. I didn't update Colorado. Isn't that funny? I didn't update my own state right now. Ignore that. You didn't see that. I'm going to update that right after this show. Oh my goodness, you caught me. If it isn't 2021 on the dates, though some don't change for many years, you might want to dig a little further or write me to make sure it's the most current one. But let's find one that has a constitution. I just want to flip through here. I want to look, see if we have one which has 2021 bylaws and a constitution. Okay, so here's one. We have Arizona with 2021 bylaws, but they haven't changed their constitution since 1999. That's not uncommon. But I see a couple on here that I need to update. Like I know Florida has more current bylaws, so I will take care of that after the show. This is your second tier reference, but this could also help if you are interested in researching the requirements of other parties. Perhaps you're a member of a caucus that's trying to, work together to, work for your caucus goals, and you want to see what the requirements are for each state. This could be helpful, but I do, again, see some things I need to update, but I will do that after this show. I'm going to go through each state and make sure I have the most current. But here, let's go to Arizona. So here's Arizona's bylaws, but let's also pull up their constitution. Now, in a state that has both bylaws and constitution, you have to read the two together. I suggest starting with the constitution as the document that is of higher authority. So we will flip through Arizona's constitution to see what's in there. We've got a preamble. I've never seen no all men and women by these presents. Okay. Name an organization. It's usually really high-level things that are in the Constitution, such as the names, affiliates, and officers. But sometimes the same subject matter is dealt with in both the Constitution and bylaws, so that you have to read them together. So that's what we're looking to see here. It's talking about the board, limitation of liability, amendments to the Constitution. That's it. Just very, very high level stuff. I'm going to do a word search to see if it mentions delegates. It does not. And that's pretty typical. So it would be in their bylaws. We're not going to go through these. We've already went through a set of bylaws. But I wanted to show you how you would handle it if there was both a constitution and a bylaws. Okay, next what we're going to talk about is delegate allocations. In order to fully understand that, we're going to need to pull up the national bylaws, and let me show you how you can find those. It's always a good idea to be familiar with those as well. Okay, so we are going to go to the main LP site, and that is lp.org. And you can find the bylaws here in the footer where it says bylaws. Of course, you could do a word search and that would help you find it. And it has all the past ones, but here is the current bylaws. All right, and there is a table of content. table of contents in the beginning. So let's see what we can find. Okay, conventions. Probably the best place to start looking. We don't see a title of delegates, so let's go to conventions. Okay, the party shall hold a regular convention every 2 years at a time and place selected by the National Committee. Regular conventions shall be held sometime during the period of July of an odd number year through August of an even numbered year. All business required to be conducted at regular conventions shall be conducted at regular conventions only. Goes to delegates. Delegates, now here's a requirement, the national requirements to be a delegate. Delegates shall be required to be members of either the party, meaning the national party, or an affiliate party. So you need to be a member of either. And your state affiliate will actually, who you're getting elected. So what this provision is in the case that a state affiliate doesn't have a membership requirement for delegates, you'll then at least need to be a member of them or the national party. So this is kind of a catch-all on the national level. At all regular conventions, delegates shall be those accredited who have registered at the convention. Any federal or state law to the contrary notwithstanding, delegates to a regular convention shall be selected by a method adopted by each affiliate party, provided, however, that only members of the party as defined in these bylaws or members of the affiliate party as defined in the Constitution or bylaws of such affiliate party shall be eligible to vote for the selection of delegates to a regular convention. So this is a restriction on who can vote to send delegates. I've never seen a state affiliate party allow non-members to vote for delegates, but this would prohibit that. Affiliate delegate entitlements. Each affiliate party shall be entitled to send delegates to each regular convention on the following basis. And it gives certain calculations. We're going to read them. Don't let your head spin. 1 delegate for each 0.14% or a fraction thereof of the total party sustaining membership in that affiliate, provided that at least one such delegate must be a resident of that state or district. So let me explain. Delegate entitlements are based upon the number of dues-paying national members of that state. So that's why it benefits state to have a high number of national members. Sometimes people wonder, why bother to pay dues to national? It's not helping my state party. Yes, it is. It raises your state delegate total. And we're going to get into how you can help your state have more delegates coming up. Okay, next, and at least one of them must be a resident of that state. It may not seem apparent. Some states allow out-of-state people to be delegates for their state. I don't recommend that, but some do, such as Pennsylvania. California used to and just got rid of that. So that's the first portion of the equation. The second portion is 1 delegate for each 0.35% or fraction thereof of the votes cast nationwide for the Libertarian Party candidate and the most recent presidential election cast in that affiliate state. So you also benefit from having high vote totals for the Libertarian Party candidate. There's a section next that talks about how it's calculated if that state uses ranked choice or instant runoff voting, as I think Maine might. So you have up until the 7th month, the last day of the 7th month prior to the regular convention to get your national membership numbers up. For this convention, it's October 31st. So you can help your state by getting more national party members by October 31st. And then the secretary, me right now, shall make a count of the sustaining members qualified under the requirements set forth here and shall compute the delegate allocations for the affiliate parties. Notification of the sustaining membership totals and allocation totals shall be sent by the secretary to the chair of each affiliate party no later than the last day of the 6th month prior to a regular convention, so by the end of November. A list of the names and addresses of all delegates and alternates chosen by each affiliate shall be sent to the Credentials Committee. And it goes on. The rest isn't of interest to us right now. So that's how delegates are allocated. So what I would like to show you, though, is if the delegate allocations were the beginning of July. I did a sample and I sent this out to the state chairs. And I sent this out to the state chairs in the beginning of July for them to see if the allocations were done then, what their delegate allocations would look like. And I sent it to them complete with my formulas in the cells so they could play around saying, if we got this many more national members, this might be how many delegates we get. And I say it might because it's a fraction of the nationwide total. And you can't assume all the other states are going to stay stagnant. They are also trying to raise their national members. But you could play around with all of these numbers, and I can send you a copy of this if you would like, to see how it would affect you. So, for instance, if we look at Colorado, if the delegate allocations were at the beginning of July, Colorado would get 31 delegates. 9 of them would be earned from the presidential vote totals, and 22 of them would be earned from their national membership numbers, which is short BSM, which means bylaws sustaining member. But in 2020, for comparison, we had 35 delegates. So we've had a net change of -4, which isn't good. And you can see up in here, I have all of the formulas that compute these. So you could play around with this. And you can see if the delegate allocations were in the beginning of July, the total maximum number of delegates would be 1,047. It's always around that number. We had 1,045 in 2020. And you could see the net change between the two was 2 delegates. It, again, all depends upon the national numbers. It's always right around there. And if you notice down here, we have XX for a state, and there's 72 of those. Those are people who live outside the country. They might live in territories, but they're not, their membership is not tied to any particular state. So although they count in the total number of national members, there's no delegates allocated for those 72. So this will show you the allocations. And again, I would be more than glad to send this to you if you would like to take a look at it. Secretary@lp.org, your state chair, also has a copy. Now, hopefully you noticed in that list that the number of delegates allocated to the states varies wildly, and it's due to the size of the state and those factors we talked about before. For instance, California gets about 110 convention delegates. That is a lot. As I said, Colorado gets around 30. Smaller states, Wyoming, Montana, they might get between 4 and 6. So depending upon your state, there may not be very many delegate slots, but there also might not be that many people competing for them. But that is something you are going to want to take into consideration. Now, if it looks like there might be stiff competition, and you should probably assume that, no matter how many delegate spots there are. For instance, California last time, even though there was quite a number of seats, there were more butts than there were seats that wanted to be seated. So you should always prepare for potential competition for these delegate seats. So how can you increase your chance? Obviously, the longer that you're in the party and known, that increases your chance. But if you're new, there's nothing you can do about that. It is what it is. But you can start getting very involved with your state party now and making a name for yourself. There is always something that needs done. So contact your state party. Get involved with your county affiliate. Be seen. Be active. If you need help with this, if you're not sure where to start, get in touch with me. And if I can't help you, I will find the right person to help you. But now's the time to start positioning yourself to be competitive, and be sure to be at your state convention. And something else you'll need to take into consideration is the just bare fact of delegate costs and responsibilities. The costs to attend the national convention are solely yours. You do not get paid to be a delegate from your state party. The convention is going to be in Sparks, Nevada. It's right by Reno. You might as well say Reno, but it is in Sparks at the Nugget Casino. The dates for the convention are May 26, 2022 through May 29th, 2022. So you'll need to plan that you're going to need to get to Reno, and when you're there, you're going to need lodging. From what I understand, we have a very good room rate at the Nugget. I'll be sharing information on that as it becomes available. The convention is still being planned right now. In fact, there is a theme contest which you might want to enter. There was an email that went out about that from the National Party. I believe there's something about it on lp.org, but again, I can get you that information, where basically you donate a certain amount and it's competition to what the convention theme will be. Last time it was there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Tanstaffel. We've had themes in the past of that Libertarian. So if you have an idea for a theme, go ahead and submit it. The convention committee is considering those now, so time is of the essence. But getting back to the costs and responsibilities. So you are responsible for the cost to get there, for your lodging, your food, whatever other necessities you may have. There's usually things planned, though, like if you want to bring your family, that it can be a family vacation. And remember, this is at the Nugget, which is a casino. So there's plenty of entertainment that is appropriate for the adults in your family. Now, to participate in business alone, meaning you get into the convention floor and you do the basic responsibilities of being a delegate. That is free. There's no cost for that if that is all you want to do. But if you want to get more immersed into the convention, and if you want to get some of the perks like the delegate packages and a nice name badge and everything but the bare bones, there are certain packages you can buy, and those include, meals with speakers and educational events. It is well worth it to get a convention package, and you help pay for the convention when you do that. I would highly encourage you, if you can afford it, to get the gold package. It is the best value, and you will get the most out of the convention by being able to go to all of the events, including the gala dinner. These tickets will be going on sale soon, and there will be early bird pricing, which is the best time to get the tickets. But remember, if you can get there, pay for your food and your lodging, and you can't afford anything else, there is no floor fee. There is no cost to be involved if you just want the bare bones. That is free, but I do encourage you, if you can, to purchase a convention package. All right, that is it for this episode of Unconventional. Next time, we're going to be talking about what actually happens at national conventions more specifically. We covered it generally last time. I'm going to get more into the specifics next time, so I'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully at 7 Mountain. Sorry for the delay for today, and I hope you have an awesome day or night, wherever it might be in your part of the ball earth. Thank you so much. Live free. Mi guapas de